Hello everyone, my name is Sterling Gildersleeve and I'd like to welcome you to Chicago Spotlight on Recovery, where we'll be discussing recovery education for families. Recovery education for families is the brainchild of Barbara Titoni, who wanted to have a forum to educate family members about substance abuse and mental health issues. Unfortunately, Barbara passed away on October 13th, and she's certainly very much missed, but her dream has continued, and we want to continue with her series of shows addressing substance abuse and mental health issues. So we want to welcome you. Today, we're very fortunate to have Ms. Cheryl Farney, who will be our guest for today. We want to welcome you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Cheryl, so you identify yourself as being a person with mental health issues?
I do. I have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder with psychotic features.
Ah, okay. Now, how old were you when you first experienced symptoms of this mental illness?
I was 29. I have been in recovery since 2009.
Ah, since 2009. Okay. Well, can you help us to understand what this is like? This psychosis you said it is? Oh, yes.
Sure. So I see things and hear things that other people don't see and hear when I'm experiencing psychosis. And that can be very challenging and very trying. And I also experience mania, which means my mood is very elevated and I tend to not sleep. I tend to not engage with others in a fairly normal way. I'm very hyper.
I see. And so this is something that is over a period of time. I mean, is it episodes kind of thing that happens for a few hours, a couple of days, or is it a long periods of time that the experience is?
That's a good question. When I was first hospitalized, I was hospitalized over the course of 2 years, 8 to 9 times during that 2 years. So I was consistently psychotic during that period.
Oh, okay.
So since then, I've been on medication and I've involved myself in recovery activities here in the state of Illinois that have really bolstered my recovery.
Okay. So in Illinois, there are many resources available for people who suffer such issues or mental health issues.
Sure. In Chicago alone, we have, I'm on the board of directors for Trilogy Incorporated, which is a local non-for-profit, which is a mental health center, and they do things like WRAP, which stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan. That is Mary Ellen Copeland's brainchild and gift to the mental health community. She is also a consumer of mental health services, and WRAP is something that those of us in recovery like to use. It's a 7-point plan to help us stay well. So we like that. It's fairly easy and accessible to use, and it's universal. So it's a great tool.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. We would like you to, if you like, to give us a call here to ask questions of Cheryl, if you might have them. We can be reached at, as you see on the screen, at 312-738-1080, and we welcome any calls or comments or questions that you might have. Cheryl had mentioned too that there is a lot of information available. There's a recovery and empowerment handbook that's available that you can receive from the Illinois Department of Mental Health by simply calling 866-359-7953. And that handbook this is the handbook that is available just by phone call that can give you some valuable information for you or a loved one answering questions regarding mental health issues. Cheryl, could you tell us how did your family support you during this time with when you were having these episodes?
My family struggled a lot. My mother actually went to NAMI. NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, for education on mental illness and how to support me best during my recovery. So she went to some support groups here in Chicago while she was helping take care of me. Okay. My family is very supportive. I'm very lucky. I know that. Not a lot of people have supportive families, especially those of us with mental health challenges. I see that a lot in my work as a recovery support specialist. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis at the University of Illinois.
Oh, so this is now your line of work? This is what you do as professionally?
I do.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Now you mentioned this NAMI. Are there many of these support groups in the Chicagoland area?
Absolutely. There are NAMI Chicago, NAMI Cook County North Suburban, NAMI Metro Suburban, NAMI DuPage. There are several chapters of NAMI in the Chicagoland area, and they offer not only family support groups, but also peer support groups.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. That's great. Have you had to be in instances where you had to be hospitalized as a result of your mental health issues?
Yes, I was hospitalized, like I said, 8 or 9 times in the course of my recovery, and it started in 2007 and 2008, and I was hospitalized at Chicago Reed, I was hospitalized at Northwestern, I was hospitalized at Lakeshore Hospital, and I refused treatment everywhere I went. So I was refusing that I was denying the fact that I had a mental illness, and it took losing my job, it took losing my house, it took losing my then fiance to mental illness before I decided that I needed help.
Okay. With getting this help, who do you think helped you the most? How do you think, who helped you the most in this transition to accepting?
To be honest, my pastor. I know that's not the state of Illinois, but my pastor was the most supportive person during my recovery. And also, 2 social workers were of great support. They encouraged me to follow my career in this field.
Okay.
So 2 social workers, I lived at the Lawson Y, where there were 2 programs that were instituted by Northwestern at the time, called Union House and EHP. And EHP stands for the Emergency Housing Program. These 2 programs are no longer in existence. They've lost funding. But I was fortunate enough to meet 2 social workers who really said, you should be engaged with employment, and that'll help you with your recovery, and she was right.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Ladies, I see that we have a callers. Caller, your question or
yes.
comment?
Yes, and good evening to you. And first of all, to your guest, I like to commend her so much. I tell other people the same things. In recovery, we think we just have one problem, but when you get in, you learn you might have plenty of problems. And if you get to the right place, they always have people to help you. And that's the most wonderful thing. And then listening to her, see, they have social workers, and certain people, see, they always think people that's in recovery is destituted people, and they not. They are professional people that's in, people with knowledge, and then they end up going back to school, and then they help them, and a lot of times they bring that help right back to where they get their recovery from. So it's so wonderful to hear your story. I'm quite sure there's many other people will be willing to listen to that, because again, people can't understand. They just think it's just drugs, alcohol, but there's many other reasons why people still do things. So with your help, it's just to learn to know a friend of Bill's is a wonderful thing to have. I want to thank you for taking the call. I'd like to wish everyone a safe day and wish everyone's family a wonderful holiday. And thanks for taking the call. Let me get out there so I can hear your response.
Thank you so much, caller. Thank you. Yeah, the caller makes one point that I think is a very good point, and that is, people don't, the stigma attached to mental health. So often, like I say, even within ourselves, you say, in the beginning, you didn't want to admit to having the problem yourself, but in the community at large, and like I say, families, no one wants to admit that someone might have a mental health issue. You find that to be true?
I do find that to be true. It's very difficult, and it can be divided racially too. I think that's a big thing that I see in my line of work. But for me, I come from a fairly affluent background. I was educated. I had gone to college before my episodes happened. So it's like, not me. I'm not bipolar. I don't have bipolar disorder. What are you talking about? I'm not willing to accept this diagnosis and this, what you're handing me is a life sentence, right?
Yes.
And I was indignant. And I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be just someone with a mental illness. But like the caller said, we are people just like everybody else. We have jobs, we have a life, we have friends, we have families, we have hope for the future.
Absolutely, fantastic. Now, not to get off track, but you say that there's even racial issues, and that could just a little bit explain what do you mean by that?
Well, as a white person, I can't really address other races, but what I see in my line of work, I work on the inpatient unit. I work on an inpatient unit, and I see a lot of, especially African American individuals who say they don't want to tell their families that they're in the hospital at all.
I see.
And they say that they're stigmatized by their families and they're stigmatized by their communities, and they don't want to acknowledge the fact that they have a mental illness. So when I talk to people, I try to instill hope.
Absolutely, that's great. Now, how do you maintain your wellness? How do you personally maintain your mental wellness?
I struggle with that, but my mental wellness is based around not only a medication regimen, but also a large community of support here in the state, and also with friends in my community. And like I said, my church has been a huge support for me. But being a CRSS, which stands for Certified Recovery Support Specialist, that is the credential that is offered by the state for persons in recovery who want to work in the recovery movement, like I do. That has been a community that that's really strengthened my recovery. That's really helped me grow in my, and doing work with others in mental health has been very helpful for me.
Okay, well, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great guest here, Cheryl Farney, who is discussing mental health and ways to address mental health. So please give us a call. We're at 312-738-1080. And Cheryl, who not only has suffered from mental health issues, but also works in the field, and so very knowledgeable about how it impacts and affects families and individuals. So please give us a call with any of your questions. Also, there's information available at the Illinois Division of Mental Health. There's a wonderful handbook that they have that's available just by calling 866-359-7953. So if you want to get more information, just give them a call. You also had mentioned that it's the medication that helps with mental health, but also it seems like very strongly community, having support of the community. So those are the things seem to be the keys, medication and then the support of the community.
I don't think medication is for everyone. I'm somebody who benefits from it, but and I'm not a doctor. I can't prescribe anything to anyone. I wouldn't advocate for it in all cases. But I think the support of my community has been a big deal for me.
Oh, that's surprising. I thought that everyone who had some kind of mental challenge was because of some kind of chemical imbalances of some kind, something that everyone needed medication. But that's not the case.
Well, so some of us, like me, have issues that are precipitated by trauma. And yes, that can cause a chemical imbalance, but a lot isn't known about those chemicals and how it all works. And it took me the better part of 4 to 5 years to find the right cocktail, is the vernacular for it. So, it took the doctors, and I gained a lot of weight on medication. I used to be very thin, and now I'm not.
Well, I think that's part of it too. Like, people don't want to address the issue because of it takes sometimes the medications to get the right combination. It takes time, and people get frustrated and feel like, well, this doesn't work, or I don't need it, or I feel worse than I did without it, and those are kind of things that some of the things I've heard that people say. So
That's true. I see a lot of that with my patients as well. And for myself, I think when I went off my medication because I was like, I don't need this anymore. I'm doing well. I don't need to take this. But I found out that when I went off my medication, I was not doing well again. So I was experiencing symptoms that were detrimental to my health.
Okay, so that's really what the incentive was, that you found yourself getting worse.
Yeah.
Was the incentive to get some help, to get help.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Cheryl has brought a lot of information for us, a lot of resources for us to address mental health, and one of them is that there's something available through the Illinois Division of Mental Health. There's information available ongoing, and you can get on their mailing list to stay on top of all things recovery by simply going to the email address we're showing you here. Just give Virginia, get on her email list, and they will send you information ongoing to help you stay abreast of what's going on in Illinois to address mental health and mental health services. So Cheryl, what do you think is the most important thing that you need to do, or a person needs to do to maintain their mental health? Yeah.
I think for me, the most important thing is maintaining open communication with my providers and my supporters. And RAP helps me do that, Wellness Recovery Action Plan, like I mentioned before. I have a RAP plan that I've shared with my providers and my supporters, my parents especially, have a copy of my RAP plan, which is something akin to what is known as an advance directive. You may be familiar with the Do Not Resuscitate advance directive. That's a more common one. But there is a advance directive in the state of Illinois for mental health. It's called a Mental Health Declaration of Treatment. And that can be found online. I don't know the exact web address, but if you Google Illinois Advance Directive for Mental Health, you'll be able to find that. And having that, which means you've set up rules which say, I want to be hospitalized here, I want to take this medication, I don't want to take this medication, I don't want to be hospitalized here, I don't want this person involved in my treatment, but I do want this other person involved. So it's a document, a living document that you can use to help you sustain your recovery.
Okay. Now, what would you recommend? What would you recommend to individuals or families for someone who has a mental health issue, mental illness? What would you recommend for them to do?
For the families or for the individual?
It's for both, for the individual and for the family. What would you recommend?
I think the most important thing is to seek help when you need it, and to be comfortable enough in your own skin to say, I need help. And I think that can be the hardest thing, to acknowledge that you need help. So that's for the individual. For families, be patient, because my family, like I said, it took me 2.5 years of hospitalizations before I was willing and ready to be treated. And as an adult, without being forced into guardianship or someone taking control of my life, which is also something that can happen. I was lucky it didn't happen to me. I maintained control over my own life and my own finances and all of that, even when I was sick. But for families, be patient, because I think the best thing you can offer your loved one is your love and your support.
Absolutely. So once again, Cheryl has a lot of information for us, and there's a lot of information available. So please take advantage and get some of the information available. One, through the Recovery and Empowerment Handbook, which is available just by calling 866-359-7953. I see that we have a caller. Caller, your question or comment?
Yes, a quick question and a quick comment. I was the first caller who called. I used to tell people that you could call the Department of Power of Attorney for your medical situation. Then you can have certain people that will handle things for you, and your desire. They will know your desires, and like you say, you have a list of your medication and things of that nature. I wonder, is that the same thing that you could still do? And number two, I heard you when you said you got off your medication. Remind me of people who have acid reflux. Well, they take the medication and then they don't have the problem no more. And then the first day they want to say, well, I don't have that problem no more, and they quit taking it. And then the same problem occur again. So certain things, sweetheart, you know you got to do, and you just do it. That's all the most important thing. Because one thing you want to do, you don't want to fall back to what it used to be. Again, thanks for taking the call. Let me hear your response.
Sure. Do you have any response to the comments of the gentleman? Or
No,
just-
I absolutely agree.
Okay.
I learned the hard way, and I would not recommend to anyone who is on medication. Like, I often tell people it's like having diabetes, right? With diabetes, we need insulin to survive, and we need to manage our blood sugar, and we need to manage all these things. Well, with mental illness, there are, like you say, maybe chemical imbalances, for at least for me. And I like I said, I don't always advocate for medication, but in my case, the medication works, and I know it works, and I had to learn the hard way that I needed it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Now, you working in the field. What aspects of working in the field do you find to be the most valuable for you personally?
Well, when I tell my story and people see that the future isn't written yet, that they have hope, that they can go back to work, that they can live a life, that is so valuable to me.
Indeed. So people, you motivate people when they say that you're someone who truly understands because you've gone through it yourself.
Yeah.
Indeed, I can certainly appreciate that. Are there any other kind of recovery-related activities that you participate in? You mentioned the rap and.
RAP, and there's another, I lead a whole health action management group. When whole health action management, or WHAM, not like the band with George Michael, but WHAM is SAMHSA, and SAMHSA is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration, which is the federal branch that oversees mental health and substance abuse issues throughout the country. They created WHAM to help people identify the 10 top whole health and resiliency factors, which include getting restful sleep, eating properly, nutrition, things like that. So following that program has been very valuable for me as well.
Okay. Now, how does one get involved in this recovery movement? Someone who wants to volunteer, perhaps, or to get more information. How would they get involved?
Virginia's email list is a good place to start. It's to stay up on all things recovery here in Region 1.
Okay. There we go.
But also, I think you can do NAMI, you can do, like I said, I'm on the board at Trilogy. We have a drop-in center. People can come there and hang out and be a part of the recovery movement. NAMI has a drop-in center in Oak Park, the west side. Thresholds. There are plenty of places to go in Chicago.
Ooh, fantastic. So you think a good place to start would be here with Virginia, just to send her an email and getting on their mailing list?
I do, yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, again, Cheryl, you definitely have a lot of information. This certified recovery specialist, the credential that you have, is this something that others who in recovery would like to get involved? Is that something? Would you have to go to college or school?
A high school diploma is required in order to pursue the credential, and also 1 year of full-time supervised hours, so 2,000 hours of supervised experience.
Okay.
And then we take a test, and that's it.
Well,
It's not that hard to get the credential.
I think the valuable thing is that you have the experiential knowledge that you can tell people from what you have experienced yourself. I think is the most valuable knowledge that one could have.
That's the key point of being a CRSS. You have to be willing and able to tell your story of recovery.
Okay. And that's something that you do very, very well, Cheryl.
Thank you.
You've done a wonderful job, and again, it's been a wealth of information to me and to hope to our audience. And I want to thank you for coming out and joining us.
My pleasure.
And thank you for coming. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you want more information, please go to the website here with Virginia Goldrick, and become on the site, and you'll be information coming to you ongoing. So, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.